Greetings people, it's Paul here at Greenshire Homestead. Planting tomatoes today, and I thought I better shoot a video on this. I want to show you, this is a garden plan, okay? You need to have one of these where I've got the, I'm bringing it a little closer. I've got the beds drawn with pen, and then inside the beds, what's going to go where, I write that with a pencil, and then I date it. And see, I can go back through the years. This is going to be 21 and I've got 22 in here. I can go back some 20 years and see what I planted. The reason this is important is you don't want to be planting the same things in the same beds year after year. I'm going to use carrots and beets as an example. In the soil there's nematodes, okay, and the nematodes will actually they'll nibble at the carrots and the beets, and if you're always planting carrots and beets in the same location, the nematode population is actually going to increase because you're providing them a food source and a wonderful place to live. And you want to move everything that you're growing into a different location for at least every 3 years. You don't want to plant the beets and the carrots back in the same place for at least 3 years, because that minimizes the problems that you're going to have in the soil. With bacteria, the microbes like the nematodes, just things that cause you problems will minimize if you keep rotating your crops. So that's why it's important to have something like this, so you can keep track of where you planted everything. Other thing we're going to do is we're going to incorporate some compost. This bucket, all this is pure compost. There's nothing in here but compost. This is all compost I made. I'm going to show you how I incorporate that in with my plantings. These are all tomatoes I started from seed in March. As you can see, they've already got blooms on them. They need to get in the ground. This is mid-May. Another thing I put in the soil into the planting hole, just like I do with the compost, is tomatoes will develop what's called blossom end rot. And that's when you have a nice tomato plant, everything looks great, you have these nice red tomatoes on there, and then all of a sudden one day you come out and maybe 3 or 4 of your tomatoes, or 1 or 2, have got this black brownish looking funk on the bottom of the tomato, where it's a nice bright red tomato, the top portion of it, and then on the very bottom it's got this disgusting display of black and brown on there. That's called blossom end rot. And the main reason that's caused, there's a few things that will help that to come along, but the main reason that I've found, and I think this is accurate because for 2 years I've been doing this, is it's a calcium deficiency. And so if the soil doesn't have enough calcium, that's what's causing the blossom end rot on the tomatoes for the most part. And what I've taken to doing is at least 4 weeks more. It's more beneficial to do it about 6 or 7 weeks ahead, but at least 4 weeks before you're going to plant your tomatoes, you've got your garden plan, so you know exactly where they're going to be. Is you want to come out and dig a hole, and I've got this trellis works because I grow single stem tomatoes. I won't go into detail about that because I have a video on growing single stem tomatoes, but I've got this apparatus. I've got this wire that runs through here, and then the top piece of rebar to the wire, I've got this baling twine. So wherever there's a piece of baling twine, I know that's where one of the tomatoes is going to go. So right below that baling twine, I'll incorporate the gypsum into the soil, like I said, for at least 4 weeks ahead. Now what gypsum is, that's the walls in your house are made out of, people call it wallboard, it's actually called sheetrock. And that sheetrock is made out of gypsum rock, and so gypsum is high in calcium, so they make pelletized gypsum. You can buy that at a garden store, big bag store, big box store, whatever you want to call it. And it'll be usually in about a 40-pound bag because it's heavy. And I would show you the bag, but mine was in the greenhouse, so it's all bleached out. You can't read it anyway. But it's called pelletized gypsum. And just put, when you dig your hole, get a scoop about that size, throw that size scoop into the hole, and then take your trowel and just turn it in. So it's all blended into the soil in the hole real well. That should take care of your blossom end rot. One other thing I want to do is show you my compost pile and talk about that real quick, because different people do a lot of things with compost. I don't do anything with my compost except throw it on the pile, and I want to show you how I then harvest the compost and how I take care of that. Okay, this is my compost pile, and like all compost piles, it's just made out of all kinds of biodegradable stuff that has either been harvested from the yard or the garden, flower beds, whatever, the kitchen scraps. It's got everything in it that comes out of our house and our yard that's biodegradable. The little tan flakes down there, that's eggshells. You know, eggshells are another source of calcium to add into the garden. But I don't see a benefit in turning compost, and I don't see a benefit of having separate compost bins. I've got a lot of work to do around here, and this place keeps me busy, and trying to turn compost is a chore that is labor intensive, and I just don't see the benefit of it when nature does it itself. Nature knows what to do with this pile of debris here. So most of that is from the garden last year, and you see it's already breaking down substantially, and this is only May. By the end of summer, that's going to be completely broken down. But then underneath all that, I've got the finished compost. So, you know, what I do, you can see this hole here, that's what I've been gathering. That bucket I've got over there that I showed you with compost in it, that's what I've been doing. Is I get it, I move the debris out of the way, such as I've done here. I get all the debris out of the way, and then I've actually got something brewing there. And then I just I just get all this out of here, and that's what I put in the bucket. And you can see what a wonderful product that is. There's a seed here, but that's not viable. It's already rotten. And I just put all that in the bucket, and I take that in and put it in the planting beds. The other good thing about this is we had heavy rain last night. We only got 0.6 of an inch, but it all came in about a half an hour. That's a lot of rain to have in a half an hour. Now, if I just had finished compost laying here, that rain would have beat the heck out of my compost. I would have had runoff and compaction and all kinds of issues. But with having all this debris on the top, the rain hit that debris, cushioned it, and then the water made its way down into the compost, nice and gently. The debris on top actually protects the compost from both the ultraviolet light. It makes a more pleasing place for the worms and the microbes to live, because the sun's not beating down on it and the rain's not beating down on it. So my wife doesn't have to get confused when she brings out debris, like, well, which bin do I put it in, or any of that kind of stuff. It just goes on the compost pile. She knows that everything goes on the top, and by the time it gets to the bottom, it's already broken down. So don't work too hard on your compost, people. Make one bin, throw everything on it, and then when it's time to harvest, move some of the stuff out of the way and harvest out of your finished product there. So I just wanted to give you something to think about. Another thing I want to talk about here real quick, people, is when I move this mulch back and I dig into this bed, you're going to be like, wow, that's really, really nice soil. And you're right, it is. But that doesn't just happen. I've created that with the use of compost and mulch. But the main reason it is this. This is a Meadow Creature garden fork. This thing's a beast. It's about $300, but it's guaranteed for life. You can only find them online. As far as I know, the big box stores don't carry them. But I don't use a tiller. I would never allow a tiller in here. All tillers do is destroy the soil, kill microbes and kill earthworms, and destroy fungus. I get passionate about this. I can't tell you enough why you should never use a tiller. But anyway, I've got a video on that. It's called Creating Garden Beds, and I show you how to use a garden fork, and I explain it a lot more in detail. So I wanted to point that out. I've got 61 videos. This will be number 62. So if you go to Greenshire Homestead and you can't find all the videos, on the logo there's a picture of a tree, and it's got the root ball underneath it. If you just click on that tree, that opens up the entire video series, and then you just click on videos, and all 62 videos will show, and then you can look for the one on creating garden beds. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. So now we take, let me re-aim the camera here. Okay. Now what we're going to do, first thing we got to do is pull the mulch back to create an area here where we're going to plant the tomato, like I said, right under the twine. So, but we've got to first, we're going to disturb the soil down about an inch. What I'm doing here is I'm looking for cutworms. But a cutworm, they're about ½ an inch long, and they're going to usually be brown or black, look like a small caterpillar, and they live in the very top of the soil or just under the mulch. And what they'll do is come out at night and they'll chew through the stem right at the ground level of a plant. The plant falls over like a felled tree, it's dead, and there's nothing you can do about it. They really suck. They don't just eat a portion of the plant, they chew off the stem and it kills the entire thing. So I've pretty well eliminated them. I wish I could find one. I didn't find one when I put these three in either, but then we take our garden trowel and see how deeply that goes and how easy that was. We pull that, look at that soil, people. And then these pellets here that you see, they look like little BBs, that's the pelletized gypsum. That's what it'll look like. So this is it's already started to break down. It's looking kind of funky. So I put it in 4 weeks ago. Like I said, it's better to go about 7. Now, got the hole there. I'm going to take 2 handfuls of the compost, just like that. Put it in the hole. Now, I'm going to go down a little deeper, and I'm going to turn all this and incorporate that compost into this planting area. Now we're going to remake a hole. Take our tomato plant. Now this works for all your potted plants, whether it's basil or peppers or tomatoes, whatever. All the potted plants, this works the same way. It doesn't matter, you know, these are, I'm just happen to be doing tomatoes today. It also works with the seed. If you're going to plant seed, you dig a hole like this, incorporate the compost in it like I just did. The only difference is you're going to plant the seed at whatever the prescribed method is on the packet. The seed packet will tell you, you know, plant 1/4 of an inch deep or plant near the soil surface, you know, that sort of thing. So that's the only difference with the planting of the seed, is how deep you're going to plant it. So we pull the plant out. You see the root ball here. We're going to break up the bottom of that a little bit just to encourage it to spread out. And we'll set it down in there. Backfill a little. Make sure that it's right there by that twine, because it's going to need to climb up that. And there we go. Now I'm going to take this hose, is gravity fed only. We don't have any rural water here. We're on a well. I don't like to use my well water to water my garden because I don't want to run my well dry. So I have a rainwater catchment system, and this garden hose is hooked up to that rainwater catchment system, which is up in my shop. I got a 2-inch line that runs across the, you know, underground down here to the garden, and then the 2-inch line is hooked to this 5/8-inch hose. I've got a video on how to make the rain catchment system, and I have another video on how to hook that 2-inch line up to the garden hose. So you want to put a little bit of water in there, and then finish the backfilling. You said you do this with all your potted plants. Push down pretty significantly. Put your mulch back. And these bottom 2 branches I'm going to break off. And that looks a little drastic, but you don't want any of the leaves of the tomato plant. This is just tomatoes. You don't do this with peppers or basil or any other plants. This is just the tomatoes. You want to do that because you don't want any of the leaves of the tomatoes to touch the mulch or the soil, because there's some fungus in there that'll get on there and it'll cause problems for your tomatoes, but only for your tomatoes. It's not going to cause problems for the other plants. You want a lot of nice airflow underneath your tomatoes. So you just break those bottom stems off and or branches off, and there you go. Now we're going to come back and we're going to put a little more water on the top there on that mulch. This mulch all came out of my chicken yard. I got a video on that too. I put all the hay in my chicken yard real thick, and they turn it for me for about 8 months, and they poop in it, and they make wonderful, wonderful mulch for my garden beds. I go in there, it sits in there all summer, all fall and all winter, and then in summer or in spring, before I'm going to get ready to plant, I go in there and I pull several wheelbarrows of it out, and it's just full of chicken manure. This right here is chicken manure. That's chicken poop right there. I know it's disgusting that I'm playing with it here, but this hay has been turned by my chickens for at least 7 months, and it's been pooped in, and it is wonderful stuff to put on your garden. So if you don't have chickens, you might think about it, just so you got something to mulch your garden with. I've also got a video on that. So thank you for watching. This is Paul at Greenshire Homestead. Good luck in the growing season of 23, and you have a good day. I would appreciate it if you give me a click on the like button and subscribe. Thanks a lot.